I never thought I'd find myself in a situation like this. Lisa and I had been married for 8 years, and honestly, I thought we were solid. We had our ups and downs like any other couple, but I always believed we were in it for the long haul. That was until we signed up for this marriage retreat, something she dragged me into after weeks of crying about how we needed to reconnect and rebuild trust. Honestly, I thought it was just another of her attempts to fix what was never broken in the first place. She's the typical bitchy wife, sharp-tongued, always deflecting her faults and never one to admit she might be wrong. But I played along, partly because I still loved her, partly because I was curious if maybe, just maybe, this retreat would do some good. The retreat was held at a cozy lakeside resort, away from the city noise, with all these couples trying to get closer, share their feelings, do trust exercises. I was skeptical, but I went in with an open mind. The first 2 days, everything seemed fine. We did the usual trust falls, sharing childhood stories and playing those awkward icebreaker games where you tell a partner your deepest secret. Lisa was her usual bitchy self, rolling her eyes at some exercises, snapping at me when I said something she didn't agree with, but I figured that's just her being her. Then came the so-called trust-building exercises that supposedly would make us more open. One of them involved partners sharing intimate details about their sex lives and being vulnerable about their insecurities. I thought, okay, nothing crazy about that, right? Wrong. I didn't realize that this was the moment things started to go south. Lisa, in her typical sassy tone, started to give these weird, dismissive responses, like she didn't want to be there, and she kept avoiding eye contact. I didn't think much of it. Honestly, I figured she was just being her usual bitchy self. It wasn't until later that night, after a few drinks, that I started noticing some strange things. She kept her phone close, texting someone in secret and brushing it off every time I caught her looking at her screen. She'd make excuses. She was checking her emails or some work thing. But how many times do you check your work email at 11 p.m.? I started noticing little signs, like her changing her clothes quickly after we got back from the activities, or her avoiding being alone with me during free time. I didn't want to jump to conclusions, but the feeling in my gut was starting to tighten. The next day, I decided to sneak a peek at her phone when she was in the bathroom. I don't know what I was expecting, but what I saw was enough to punch me in the stomach. There were messages from some guy, flirty, suggestive, talking about meeting up after the retreat. The guy was called Jake, and the texts were full of innuendos, promises of hot sex, and plans to see each other when they had the chance. My brain couldn't process it at first. For a second, I just stared at the screen, my hands trembling. I felt like I'd been punched again, this time in the chest. I knew Lisa was cheating on me. It wasn't a suspicion anymore, it was obvious. I felt this rage bubble up, but also this deep, aching sadness. I couldn't believe she was capable of doing this. After everything, after all the years I gave her. She was out there, screwing some random guy while pretending to be my loyal wife. I wanted to confront her right then, but I knew I needed to cool down. I had to plan what I was going to say, how I was going to handle this. That night after I found out, I couldn't sleep. My mind kept racing, thinking about the betrayal, about how she had been lying to me all this time. Lisa was in bed, fake innocence plastered all over her face, pretending she didn't know what I was going through. I watched her, feeling this mix of disgust and heartbreak. I wanted to scream at her, to shake her and demand answers, but I knew that wouldn't get me anywhere. Instead, I stayed silent, staring at the ceiling, trying to figure out my next move. The next morning, I decided I couldn't let her continue this charade. I had to confront her, face everything head-on. As she sat at the breakfast table, pretending to be normal, I took a deep breath and looked her right in the eyes. "Lisa," I started, my voice low but steady, "I saw your messages. I know you've been cheating on me with Jake." Her face froze for a second, then she huffed and rolled her eyes like I was accusing her of something trivial. "Oh, give me a break," she snapped. "It's nothing, just some stupid flirtation, that's all. You're overreacting." I felt my blood boil. "Nothing, so all those messages about meeting up, about sex, those are just flirtation, huh? Do you even hear yourself? You're out there lying, sneaking around, and you think you can just brush it off." Her eyes narrowed and she crossed her arms. "You're being paranoid as usual. You're always accusing me of something. Maybe you're the one with the problem, not me." I clenched my fists, trying to control the rage bubbling inside me. "No, Lisa, you're the problem. You've been screwing some guy while pretending everything's perfect. I saw the messages myself. I know about Jake." Her expression twisted and she let out a bitter laugh. "Jake, that's a joke. You're so insecure you see what you want to see. Maybe you're the one who needs help, not me." That's when I snapped. I couldn't take her lying anymore, her bullshit. I told her I'd had enough, that I was done accepting her lies. I told her she had two choices. Either she told me the truth now, or I'd leave her and end this disaster. She looked at me with that bitchy, dismissive look she always wore, then spat. "You're overreacting. I don't know what you're talking about. You're always so paranoid, it's pathetic. Maybe you're the one cheating, huh?" That was it. I realized that she was a master manipulator, a liar, and she'd been cheating on me for who knows how long. My heart felt like it was breaking, but I also felt this burning desire for justice. I knew I had to do something about it, to make her pay for what she did to me, for the pain she caused. I decided I would catch her in her lies, expose her deception, and make her regret ever crossing that line. I started planning my revenge. Not a petty one, but something that would hit her where it hurts, the emotional core, the sense of betrayal she'd so casually dismissed. I spent the next few hours quietly gathering evidence, sorting through her texts, and thinking about how I could turn this around. I wanted her to feel the same sense of betrayal I felt, maybe even more. I knew she was a bitch, manipulative and selfish, and I was determined to make her see that I wasn't going to be the fool anymore. Over the following days, I kept my cool outwardly, but inside I was simmering with a plan. I knew I had to be smart about this. Lisa loved to lie. She was great at twisting stories, so I had to be even smarter. I kept her under surveillance without her realizing. I installed a voice recorder on my phone, just in case I needed to catch her in some more lies. I also started paying closer attention to her calls, her texts, her behavior around other people. Every look, every word, every move. I didn't want to jump the gun, but I needed proof beyond just the texts. Meanwhile, Lisa became more bitchy and defensive. She was snapping at me over nothing, throwing fits if I looked at her the wrong way. I could see her trying to cover her tracks, and it only fueled my anger. I'd confront her again, but I was careful. This wasn't a situation where I wanted to be caught off guard. I knew she'd lie or deny everything, as she always did. I had to be ready for her next move. One afternoon, I decided to talk to one of the other couples at the retreat, one that seemed somewhat friendly. I figured if I could get some outside perspective, it might help me stay calm and plan accordingly. I told them I was feeling suspicious about Lisa's behavior, and surprisingly, they seemed to pick up on it. They mentioned how she'd been acting distant, snapping at her husband more than usual, and how she'd spent a lot of time on her phone late at night. That was confirmation enough for me that I wasn't imagining things. Later that evening, I sat alone in my room, going through the evidence I'd collected. The messages from Jake, the texts she'd deleted, the moments I'd caught her lying. I was trying to decide what my next move should be, whether I should confront her again or just wait for her to slip up. Every fiber of my being told me to expose her, to make sure she knew I'd caught her in her lies. I wanted her to feel the same hurt, the same betrayal I had. And then out of nowhere, things took a sudden turn. As I was reviewing everything, I received a message from an anonymous number. It was a recording audio of Lisa and some guy clearly having sex. The voice was muffled, but there was no denying it. Her moans, his grunts, that unmistakable sound of two people going at it. I felt my stomach turn, my fists clench. She had gone that far, and I had the proof I needed. My heart pounded. Whatever hope I'd been clinging to that this was just an innocent flirtation was gone. This was real, and it was worse than I ever thought. That moment hit me hard. All the rage, the heartbreak, the betrayal, it all came crashing down at once. I wanted to scream, to break something, but I held myself together. I knew I needed to prepare for what was coming next. I couldn't trust her anymore, not even a little bit. The woman I thought I knew, the woman I married, was gone. Replacing her was someone else, someone who lied, cheated, and played me for a fool. I was furious, but I also felt an overwhelming sadness. I'd lost my wife and I didn't know if I could ever get her back, but I wasn't going to let her get away with it, not without consequences. I'd made up my mind. I was going to confront her with everything I had, and I'd make sure she knew exactly how much she'd hurt me. That's when I started planning my next move. I'd show her that I wasn't the fool she thought I was. This is where things were about to get real messy. The confrontation I'd been avoiding finally came sooner than I expected. I couldn't keep it inside anymore. I had all the evidence, the texts, the recordings, the internet history, all of it laid out like a trail leading right to her deceit. I knew I had to face her, even if part of me wanted to just walk away and forget the whole mess. But I couldn't. Not after what I found. One evening I told her I needed to talk. She looked annoyed, like I was bothering her. Typical Lisa. I told her to sit down, that I had something important to say. She rolled her eyes, but she sat there, arms crossed, waiting for me to speak. I pulled out my phone, showing her the messages from Jake, the explicit conversation, the sex recording I'd gotten from the anonymous source. I watched her face change. Her eyes widened in shock, then quickly hardened into that bitchy glare she always used when she was cornered. "You lied to me," I said, my voice trembling but firm. "You've been screwing around with Jake during this retreat. You think I didn't notice how you've been acting, how you've been avoiding me, sneaking around with your damn phone. I know all about it, Lisa. Every lie, every secret, every moment you tried to hide." Her lips curled into that nasty smirk. "Oh, so now you're the detective, huh? You really think you know everything, you're just paranoid." I clenched my fist so hard my knuckles turned white. "Paranoid? No, I'm hurt, Lisa. I'm furious. I trusted you. I believed in us. And you've been having sex with some guy, hiding it from me like I'm just some idiot you can manipulate. How could you do this after everything? How could you lie to my face and pretend everything's fine?" She stood up, her voice full of venom. "Look, you don't understand what we had. Maybe I needed something else, someone who actually appreciates me. You're so boring, so predictable. Jake, he's exciting, he makes me feel alive. You're just a damn wallflower, always complaining, never giving me what I want. And honestly, if you had a backbone, you'd be happy for me. You should thank me. I gave you the evidence that I don't love you anymore. I'm done pretending." That's when I realized the depth of her venom. She was trying to turn everything around, making me the bad guy, gaslighting me into thinking I was crazy. I felt the blood rush to my head, and I knew I had to stay calm. But inside, I was burning with rage and heartbreak. This wasn't just cheating. This was her deliberately destroying what we had, making a mockery of our marriage. I told her she could lie all she wanted, but I had enough. I told her I was done. I didn't want to stay in a marriage where I was just a fool, being played for a sucker. I said I'd be leaving her, and she could do what she wanted. She sneered at me, and in that moment I saw a woman who had zero remorse, no shame, only self-interest. That was the last straw. I walked out of that house and left her standing there, furious and smug. I didn't know what I was going to do next, but I knew one thing. I wasn't going to let her keep lying and cheating without consequences. I had everything I needed now: proof, clarity, and a reason to finally walk away. The emotional fallout was enormous. I felt shattered, betrayed, and furious all at once. But I also felt a strange sense of liberation, that I was finally free from her manipulations. The worst part was knowing I'd have to rebuild from this somehow. I was broken, but I knew I'd come out of this stronger. The days that followed were a whirlwind. I moved out of the house, taking only what I needed, leaving Lisa behind with her smug look and that sick expression she always had when she thought she was winning. Honestly, I felt numb most of the time, like I had been kicked in the gut so hard that I couldn't breathe properly. All those years, all the plans. We made the future I envisioned. We were supposed to grow old together, and now it felt like I was staring into a black hole. The worst part wasn't even the betrayal itself. It was the complete lack of remorse from her. That bitch never once said she was sorry, never looked remorseful. Instead, she doubled down, calling me paranoid, accusing me of being insecure, and throwing in her usual "it's not what it looks like" lie. The truth was, I knew exactly what it looked like. A woman who'd thrown everything away for a quick fuck with some guy who probably didn't mean anything to her. And she had the audacity to call me insecure. That just made my blood boil even more. I started seeing a therapist, not just for the heartbreak, but also to help me process everything. I needed to make sense of how someone I loved and trusted could turn into this bitter, manipulative person. But deep down, I knew this was just the beginning. I wasn't going to let her get away with it so easily. I had the proof, and I planned to use it, either in court or to burn her reputation to the ground if she ever tried to slander me. I wanted her to feel the consequences of her actions, and I wanted her to know she'd lost someone who genuinely cared. I also reached out to a few close friends, people I could trust. Surprisingly, they were all furious on my behalf, telling me to get rid of her completely and never look back. Some said I should sue her for breach of trust or even adultery, but I wasn't sure I wanted to go that far. I just wanted to cut her out of my life for good and move on. The pain was immense, but I knew I had to do what was best for me. I couldn't live in the shadow of her lies anymore. Meanwhile, Lisa kept trying to contact me, calling, texting, leaving angry voicemails. She was trying to manipulate me even from a distance, playing on my guilt and insecurities. I wasn't having any of it. I blocked her number, changed my passwords, and made sure she couldn't worm her way back into my life. Every time I thought about her, I felt this crushing mixture of anger and sadness. I kept asking myself how. I've been so blind how I could have let her get away with this for so long. But I also knew deep down I had dodged a bullet. The biggest lesson in all this: never ignore the signs. Never underestimate a woman who suddenly gets bitchy, distant, or starts hiding her phone. I'd always been a trusting guy, maybe too trusting, but now I see the world differently. Some people, especially women like Lisa, are just capable of gut-wrenching betrayal and lies, and they'll do anything to cover their tracks. I learned that the hard way. I also learned that revenge isn't about revenge at all. It's about reclaiming your life, your dignity, and moving forward, no matter how much it hurts in the beginning. I'm still healing, but I know I'll get there. It just takes time. Looking back now, I realize how much this whole mess changed me. I used to think I was pretty naive about relationships, trusting people too easily. But now I see the truth. Not everyone deserves that trust, especially when they're willing to throw everything away for a quick fuck. Lisa's betrayal was a wake-up call, one I didn't see coming, but one that forced me to reevaluate everything. It's been a brutal lesson in boundaries, deception, and the importance of paying attention to the little signs. I've come to understand that revenge isn't always about getting back at someone. Sometimes it's just about reclaiming your dignity and refusing to let someone else's bullshit define you. I refused to be the fool, the one who got played. Instead, I chose to walk away, stronger than I was yesterday. It's not easy and the scars are still there, but I know I'll be okay. I'm learning to trust again, but this time more carefully. I remind myself every day that I deserve honesty, respect, and someone who values me for who I am, not for what I can give or how I can be manipulated. One thing I want others to understand from this story is that betrayal cuts deep, but healing is possible. Don't let someone's lies turn you into someone you're not. Take control, gather your evidence if you need to, and don't be afraid to walk away from toxic people, even if it hurts. The pain eventually fades, but the lessons stay with you. And trust me, you'll come out on the other side stronger and more aware. To anyone reading who might be going through something similar, just remember, your worth isn't defined by the cheater or the liar. You're better than that. Never accept lies, never settle for less, and don't be afraid to stand up for yourself. At the end of the day, the only person you truly owe honesty to is yourself. Keep your head up, stay cautious, and never let someone else take away your peace. Because someday, you'll look back and realize you're stronger than the betrayal, and you finally reclaimed your life.